And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if it's one of your favorite places to talk about sports on podcasts later on in the week, is DJing for the first time in over 14 days now, almost about 21 to be exact. I am joined by my co host, Kelcey, who is fresh off the beach of signing babies and hanging out, catching some sun too. Kelcey, welcome back, good sir. Hopefully, you enjoyed your much forced vacation.
Yeah, I'd love to say I spent some time on some beaches. Unfortunately, it wasn't all sunshine and daisies. But you know what? It was away from the office, away from the home. Always a good time. Unfortunately, Auburn couldn't help me out, so I'm stuck paying another Georgia bet for the ninth year in a row. Thankfully, once Georgia wins the 10th year next year, I don't have to keep fulfilling this bet afterwards. So we're doing pretty good right now, at least. At least I have hope that by 2 years from now, I won't have to keep doing this stupid thing.
It's nice to know that there's a little forgiveness loan on the back end of that for you finally.
I
It's
don't
not a
even
lifetime. It's not a lifetime thing.
I don't even speed, so I don't even know why I'm wearing Georgia gear. Like I can't. I don't fit in. I don't fit in with the team. I don't fit in with the fans. I just don't. I'm sorry. It bothers
You
me
need a few, you
heavily.
need about 6 or 7 more tickets to really get in the mode for it too. Or, you're gonna start sweating a little bit more to be the Bulldog and go try and charge a bull.
Yeah, it's too cold up here to try to do all that.
Absolutely. And we're gonna be talking about Texas and Georgia a little bit as well too. So we'll get to talk about your what some people who might just be tuning in think is your favorite team if they didn't know better at this point. We'll be talking about them. We'll be talking about World Series. We'll be talking college football. Got a lot to get into. We're gonna first jump in with the news of the day though, because kind of like the first episode or last week's episode, receivers are on the move again. So you may have missed Devontae Adams and Amari Cooper on the move. Well, you came back just in time for DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee not only misunderstands the assignment, but they screwed up viciously and get plagiarism on it as they not only trade away DeAndre Hopkins, they're sending him to the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs nonetheless for a fifth round pick that might be a fourth round pick if they make the Super Bowl and DeAndre plays. So there's a good chance it's a fourth round pick. But they basically give the Chiefs not DeAndre Hopkins of old. It's kind of old DeAndre Hopkins, but it's still better than what they have now. And it gives them another weapon with Hollywood Brown and all those guys eventually going to come back too. So I don't get it, Tennessee. What were you thinking? You knew the rule, anybody but them, and they went ahead and did it anyway. So DeAndre Hopkins moves the needle for the Chiefs, doesn't move it a whole lot, or I won't say it goes backwards. 'Cause I don't think there's any way you can make it go backwards at this point. They're not paying anything. So either moves the needle a whole lot or maybe not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, really, this is a shock to everybody. I think that he's a Chief, other than the Titans and the Chiefs. I guess I don't think the Chiefs are shocked by anything now. And Chiefs fans, you should be so happy that your team actually knows what to do with free agency and trading and getting new acquisitions, and not just make up excuses for why you didn't sign Derrick Henry, Jerry. Anyways, no, you know what? I don't know if it helps a lot. And everybody's be like, well, why do you say that? DeAndre Hopkins, he's one of the greatest receivers in this generation. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. He's paired with Patty, who can be very, very good. However, Patty right now 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions on the season. Yet they're undefeated. So I don't know, like, how much better can he really make Patty? I don't know if there's like an answer to that, and he's not going to really help an undefeated team go more undefeated. That just doesn't make sense. Maybe if it was like a 3-loss team and you can, like, okay, now you can go on and rattle on more wins. But in the grand scheme of things, Patty has learned how to win in the regular season. He is LeBron in the regular season, where it's just like, yeah, we'll just win and turn it on in the playoffs, because in the playoffs the dude's like 41-8 touchdown to interception ratio, which is an insane stat line for a quarterback in the playoffs. So I don't know if it's going to help, because you can't really help an undefeated team any further than they already are, but you can't hurt them for sure. So I do think it's going to be a nice luxury for Patty, but it doesn't mean everybody should go and try to trade for DeAndre in their fantasy team, in my opinion.
So I would definitely reel that in. I don't think it's going to turn Patty into a fantasy darling again like he's been most of his career. I just still think the formula is going to stay the same. They're still going to be matriculating the ball down the field, weirdly efficient running the ball every time, even without a premier name running back, or they just the ability to pop off for a carry and then a quick dump off pass here. What he does give is he gives them a backup plan, I think is what it kind of is to like, oh, it's one on one. We'll give it a try. Just gives you throw a jump ball too. It can help move the chains if Travis is double teamed or against those better teams where they game plan to take away what you do best. He gives them a plan B. And then, as you talked about, once it's playoff time, you might have Hollywood back, but by all intents and purposes, it looks like he'll be back in late December. You need him for January and February. So off Hollywood. You have Xavier Worthy still, but now you just got someone you can line up at X on the outside and just be like, go dunk on someone. Or if you want to move him inside, they could do the juju roll and just savvy. And then the hands are still there. DeAndre Hopkins always going to be able to
Oh
catch the
yeah.
ball. His hands are baseball mitts. They will remain that even if he can't separate anymore. Even if he's not as clean and smooth as he once was, he's still like 6'1", 6'2", big body, long arms, baseball mitts for gloves. The ball just sticks when he gets his hands on him. So it just it's a very nice backup plan, if that makes sense. But not by any means, like you said, he's not going to start Tyreek Hilling or breaking records or looking like DeAndre Hopkins of 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's not shit D Hop out there somewhere. It's oh wow, D Hop for 10-yard gain on 3rd and 5 to win the game. And I think that's where he's
Yep.
going to be, which is great. You gave an undefeated team a backup plan. Congratulations, Tennessee. You ruined it for everybody. Let's all reel it in. Like I said, it's not quite D Hop, it's DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Travis Kelce is always option number one. He's also option
You're gonna
number,
flip
oh
him.
God, somebody's out there somewhere. What this does, though, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind. And if there's a doubt in your mind, you're crazy. It does open up Travis Kelce more. Because now you do have to actually think about, well, DeAndre one-on-one against a second string corner or against his second corner or a shorter corner. Maybe you do have to try to bracket him or maybe shade over the top of him with the safety, which does open up Travis to come across the middle to get into those open gaps. And it does leave those gaps that were now really tight this season open a little more. And I'm not saying a lot, but they're definitely going to be putting them DeAndre on the right, Travis on the left, or vice versa at the end of their play. Like they're going to be on opposite sides of the field when the play is actually happening, just so they're not getting in each other's way, but at the same time they're leaving the field open. It's like everybody talks about the spread offense and how that revolutionized the game because it spread out the defense. Think of that on offense. You're kind of doing the same concept here. You are spreading them out. You're opening up a few lanes, and even for somebody like Xavier Worthy, that opens up a few of these deep routes, these seam routes down the middle. That we already know he's the fastest guy in the field. Now he gets to be the fastest guy in the field against one person and not against three people every time. So I don't think this is going to help out DeAndre to look like DeAndre again. Like you said, it's not D-Hop. It is going to be DeAndre Hopkins, but this is still going to be really good at the same time. It's just not going to be like, oh, this is revolutionary because, again, undefeated Chiefs team, you can't really get better than undefeated right now. You're not going to become more undefeated. It's just, again, yeah. But Travis Kelce, fantasy football owners, maybe rejoice a little bit.
And it will be the one thing that Patty's never really used throughout his career is that big body possession type of receiver. He's always had the speed demons with like Tyreek Hill, etc. And then Travis Kelce has been his possession receiver. Really, the rest of them have been speedsters or quick route runners. So it will definitely spice up a little bit of something he hasn't used a whole lot in his career. But I'm curious. We're going to see how that works. As a fan of everybody, and as the other 31 teams are probably saying right now, I hope it doesn't work whatsoever. I hope it's
Yeah.
miserable and everybody's unhappy and it just goes absolutely backwards. But not the only receiver on the move is Cooper Kupp, Super Bowl MVP. Looks like he might be on the move. Reportedly, Rams are quote unquote shopping him. Second round pick is what they're hoping for, willing to take on some of the salary to make it happen. We're not going to spend too much time on this one because we did this with Brandon Ayuk all offseason. We've done it with Debo all offseason. This happens all the time. So we're just going to keep this one quick, short, and spicy. One team. We'll each pick one team. And if there's one left over we don't pick, we could toss one in there too. Who should make the move for him?
It's so
Now the
hard.
Chiefs are out of it too. So that
I
makes it a
know.
little
Yeah, that's
easier.
like honestly, I would have said the Chiefs beforehand, and I think there's no doubt about it. I'm gonna go with cleats and khakis, the LA Chargers. I don't think he leaves LA. And I don't mean that like he doesn't change teams. No, he still changes teams. He doesn't change the shades very much either.
Doesn't change his home.
Yeah, he literally walks on 100 feet down the hallway and says, "Hey, I'm here." I just don't I don't really see there's a lot of teams that could use him. Let's not kid ourselves. There's a team down in Tampa that could use somebody right now. There's 100% the Dallas Cowboys that could probably do it. But I think likeliness of him actually being like, yeah, okay, would probably be something like where he doesn't have to really leave his city. Like he's not really learning a new playbook or anything. He'd walk into the Chargers and be number one without a doubt. There's zero question anybody on that roster is competing with him for talent. And somebody like Justin Herbert, we already know he can throw the ball. He would absolutely love to throw the ball to Cooper Kupp. So, yeah, I'm going to say the Chargers. I know that's probably never going to happen, but at the same time, why not? We're at this point where we're shopping number one receivers who won the Triple Crown 4 years ago. Like, not even 4 years ago. Like, why? Yeah, why are we here? How did we get here so fast? I don't know, but you know what? We're gonna make up crazy fun things, and this is what we're doing. We're going with the Chargers.
Well, the plan was you pick one team and you named 3 of them, including the 2 that I had listed by also throwing in Tampa Bay. So, what
My
I'll
bad.
mention Tampa Bay because they obviously need a receiver. Mike Evans is out for a few weeks, if not longer. Those hamstrings can be awful. Chris Godwin, unfortunately, out for the year too. They're in the thick of it. It's not like, oh, just give up on the season. They are tied for the division lead because Atlanta lost too. So that's a really good fit. I'm going to circle back to the Chargers one because I do think that is the best fit. Justin Herbert had his first 300-yard passing game in how long? In quite a while this last week, so they opened it up a
Yeah,
bit, and, like, 9 passes bounced off of guys' hands. He did it to tight ends, like, Will Dissly was your leading receiver. Like, of your 4 leading receivers in that game, 3 of them were tight ends.
and one's a
Like
rookie.
exactly. Quentin Johnson is out, he'll probably be back. I know they kinda like him, he's looked pretty good this year compared to last year. Ladd McConkey's gonna be fine. Cooper Kupp gives you a difference maker. You are in the thick of that division that is actually competitive with Denver too. You gotta do something to stand out, and who runs it better than us? Not a whole lot. Like, they run the ball as well as anybody. You let Justin return his back, fake that handoff, and Cooper Kupp gets a one-on-one matchup on the digs like he's like the backside dig he's been running in LA the last 5 years. That's gonna be wide open. Herbert's gonna rip it. You play action, Cooper can still get deep. It's the perfect fit, honestly. And he's not afraid to block, like, he's obviously not running through people. He's not Hines Ward. He's not Drake London, but he's not gonna shy away. He will go hit that safety on the second level when J.K. Dobbins starts to break free. So for me, the Chargers are the best fit, so we're not completely the same. Tampa Bay is also a good fit too, but really it's kinda like with Devonta Adams. Every team benefits from having Cooper Kupp on the team, especially if he can stay healthy. Now that he's looks like he's cleared and he's practicing again. So if he can get healthy and stay healthy, everyone can use his services. But
Yeah, and I do want to throw this out here as well. I do know I named 2 teams. Otherwise,
3.
there are a lot of teams that could use his services again, and I will say that. But then there's also a team like the Saints who could use him that are negative cap right now, and you just like, okay, that's not possible to fix with bringing in a Cooper Cup, so that's just out of possibility. But they
They
could
already
use
don't
him.
throw the ball to Chris Olave. Let's get another
Yeah,
receiver to not throw the ball to.
exactly. So yeah, I mean, there are teams that I think he probably has a wish list for, but I don't know if that wish list matches up to the team's ability to be able to get him. And I think that's where this comes down to a lot. Where I think he would be a great fit alongside CeeDee Lamb in Dallas. Obviously, yes, bias, but let's be honest. Is there a receiver that can do what Cooper Cup can do along with CD on the other side? No. That would be a super dynamic duo. I don't think we've ever seen that type of a duo where they are 2 guys that in reality are very similar to the way they play. Difference is CD's a bit faster than
Quite a
Cooper,
bit
but
faster.
Cooper will go up and over the top of somebody. So that I mean, we're talking about 2 guys that could get open at any given point in time, short or deep, and that's something that Dallas could obviously use because they don't have anything else going for them. But then, yeah, like I mean, just looking around the league outside of the Chargers as a realistic option, I think you hit the nail on the head with Tampa, just because of injuries. But then, like, who else can afford his services? Is the other part of this. Like, I don't. That's the part I don't know, and I don't have an answer to. So that's it's so hard with Cooper.
If you're gonna give up a second round pick like they want, or even a third that's a conditional second, you wanna be a team in the hunt too. You don't wanna do it
Yeah,
if you're just a middling team. So and Denver could probably use him. Maybe they could throw it out there, but they got Cortland Sutton too. They were trying to trade him reportedly. Like, that's a mess. It's gonna be a fun
Troy.
next couple weeks for the NFL trade deadline, which is a weird thing to say. The NFL trade deadline historically has not been the fun time of the year. It's
Yeah.
been a boring time, but recently it has been a lot of fun. So, of course, be sure to let us know down in the comments below where you think Cooper Cup should go and what you think of DeAndre Hopkins. We've had a very long intro today, which means it's probably about time to technically get the show started here. As we're going to go ahead and lead things right into the tip off, and the tip off is brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports, get yourself $20 off your first set of tickets for any sporting event of any kind that you want to go to. Once again, code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first order. And the World Series is officially almost underway. As of within 48 hours, we will have the matchup everybody wanted besides, everybody. As the Los Angeles Dodgers will be taking on the New York Yankees, and basically the 2 number 1 teams, the 2 teams that everyone knew was gonna be here, but really hoped they wouldn't be, as the 2 Kansas Cities of the MLB, more or less, if you will. The Lakers and the Celtics, however you wanna slice it. Yankees ending their drought of 15 years since 2009 of getting back. Dodgers getting back basically after being just winning a couple of years ago, so
Yeah.
they're pretty familiar here. The one thing I'll point out too before I kinda get into the breakdown of it, what I think is very interesting about this one, the Dodgers went 6 games with the Mets, which on paper looks like a competitive series. Every single game in that series was an ass whooping. The closest one was 7-3. That was the closest score in that entire series. Like they basically just took turns whooping each other's ass. The Guardians
Yeah.
and the Yankees was a gentleman's sweep where the biggest score difference was 6-3. And that was in game 2 with 2 of them going into extra innings. So it is kind of funny when you look at those from on paper, they look here, then you turn on the magnifying glass just a touch. It's like, oh, the Yankees are the ones coming off the hard fought series. Actually, when you look at it, where the Dodgers basically took 2 days in Cancun during that, they might as well have at that point. So this one's interesting. We got 2 of the best players, obviously Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, 2 weirdly extremely good pitching staffs, 2 dynamic lineups. I think my question for you is, are we going to see a high scoring World Series where the bats come to fly? Or is this going to be the one where 2 very good offensive teams come together and they hit the under and they just end up their pitching and it's just surprising everybody?
If there is more than one game that hits the under in this World Series, I'll be shocked. I think at least there will be 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7 games that hit the over. Just given off of their scoring in these playoffs, I don't believe either team has scored less than 3 runs in a game yet. Sorry, the
Uh,
Dodgers scored 2 against the Padres in their second game in the DS. So yeah, two runs, the lowest scoring for either team in this. As you mentioned, Shohei, Aaron Judge, big 2 ticker tape guys. By the way, 3 and 4 on the top best players in the MLB, also in this game, and Mookie Betts and Juan Soto, depending on how you look at it. It's insane how good they are, and let's not even forget that the Dodgers still have a Freddie Freeman that could come out and play. You don't know how well he's going to handle this ankle right now. I know it's been troubling him throughout the playoffs, but if he comes out and he's Freddie Freeman, we're talking about batting champ Freddie Freeman, who might be 5th when fully healthy on this list of best offensive players in the MLB right now. And yeah, like there's so much talent across the board. It's kind of wild to see, and uniquely with the Yankees, it's shocking to see homegrown players actually succeeding for the Yankees. Everybody talks about this team has been brought. There's the thing going around on Twitter with this is where all these players started from, and it's like the Pirates, the Padres, the A's, all these things. Throw that out the window because look at the shortstop, look at the third baseman, look at the left fielder, look at the different positions for each team that are all homegrown. Now the Dodgers, on the other hand, not so much, but at least with the Yankees, for the first time, a majority of their 25-man, 26-man roster is homegrown, which is kind of crazy. Or at the very least, they came to the Yankees in the minor leagues.
right.
They were drafted by another team and came to the Yankees in the minor leagues. So it is wild to see that in what my history with the Yankees is, where A-Rod, Jeter, where outside of Jeter, Posada, and Mariano Rivera, everybody else was brought into the team after their first big contract. That was always how it was. So it's cool to see that. But yeah, I mean, there's no chance more than one of this game hits the under. This is going to be an offensive powerhouse, and feel bad for Garrett Cole and any other pitcher in this one because, yeah, you got a murderer's row on both sides.
Absolutely. And before we get into just picking the series too, I do want to point out with those 2 superstars we talked about, Aaron Judge has been, I don't want to say labeled, but like there's been a lot of talk that he's not a playoff performer, that he hasn't always come up to play. It's been basically the last couple postseasons. I think he was hitting like 1 for a while there or something like that, or like 0.1. It was not looking good. Came alive against the Guardians. Like he really he came alive in that series. His career against the Dodgers, he has had 14 hits, 8 home runs, 11 RBIs, and 10 runs scored in 10 games with a .389 batting average. So he tends to do pretty well against the Dodgers for his career. Shohei Ohtani, on the other hand, takes a touch of a step back. Not a big step back. The problem is his standards are so damn high that it looks like he takes a step back. At a .209 batting average, 19 hits, 9 home runs, 18 RBIs, and 20 runs scored in 26 games. So I fully and wholeheartedly expect whoever wins this series, the MVP is going to be one of those 2 because I expect them both to show up, barring that Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, like that quote unquote Robin to Batman just goes absolutely ballistic, like we just saw Jaylen Brown do not that long ago in the NBA Finals. So
Yeah.
I fully expect either Judge or Shohei to be. I expect them both to come out here and guns blazing, and maybe who performs better might be the difference maker too. It might just come down to the Clash of Titans, as simplistic and boring as that is.
And don't sleep on Freddie Freeman or Giancarlo Stanton as being the other guy there in that mix, because those You talk about a guy who has a terrible average, but has come alive late here in the playoffs.
Nothing
Giancarlo
but
Stanton.
dingers.
Yeah, Giancarlo Stanton is that guy. I don't need to get on. If anybody's heard me talk about his hitting since he became a Yankee, you understand my hatred of what he does. But anyways, it is something that there's no telling who's going to be the guy that steps up for these teams. I mean, for all we know, it's somebody who that's eighth in the lineup, ninth in the lineup. It might be a catcher for all we know. That's the guy that steps up. That's just how the World Series goes. Edgar Renteria won the World Series MVP for the Giants in 2012, and the guy was pretty much trashed for a majority of the season.
Absolutely. Anything could definitely happen. So that comes to the point now. By the way, the over-under for game one is set at 8.5. So we are taking the over, it sounds like. I think we're both taking the over at this point.
5-3. No, sorry. I guess we need 5-4 is what we need.
Oh, that's very doable. That could happen in an inning really quickly with either one of these teams. But all right, Kelcey, who are we taking and how many games?
It's been 15 years. I have a hard time going against Shohei, but I've learned my lesson about betting against Aaron Judge. I can't do it out of just the bottom of my heart. I do like Aaron Judge, and also he has one of the best moments in Dodger Stadium history, which is he told a guy who is sick with cancer, "I'll hit a home run for you today." He hits 3 in that game. Hit 2 in the game. Did his job plus some. So I got to root for somebody like Aaron Judge more so than the Dodgers because my Dodgers hatred runs deep. And so I'm going to go Yankees. This one's going to go 6. I'm going to go 4-2 Yankees.
Honestly, when you throw in the Aaron Judge telling that kid he's going to hit a home run, it's impossible to root against them for that one. My hatred for both teams runs deep. So I'm just going to root for the bets to hit. But as far as picking one, I'm going to say the Dodgers get it done. I think their lineup's just a little deeper. I think it's just the pitching's just a little better. And I think they had a slightly tougher road to get here as far as I don't want to say battle tested. That's cheesy. I just think the teams they played were a touch better than the ones that the Yankees played. No shots to the Guardians, but they don't have a starting pitcher, for example. Like they literally don't have a starting.
They don't have a healthy one at least. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. They basically had to Hail Mary at every single game and made it really close. Where I think the Dodgers, they just have a little bit more firepower and they'll have just enough pitching to get by. So I'm gonna take the Dodgers. We're gonna go in 6 as well. So I don't think it's a 7-game series. I think once someone goes up 3-2, that'll be the wrapping paper on it. So let us know down below, guys, who you think is winning the World Series. Which one of us is right, or are we somehow both wrong? Which is very possible. It could. Maybe one of us got the right winner, and it's a sweep, or it's a 7. I don't know, but like somehow.
Maybe hope it doesn't happen, but maybe the Twitter map where who are you cheering for? You have LA and the Southern California area cheering for the Dodgers, New York, New Jersey cheering for the Yankees, and the rest of the map wants a comment to hit. Maybe that happens. Who knows? Hopefully it doesn't, but you know what?
I hope not as well too. Or if it does, I hope it's covered by insurance. But
yeah,
either way, that's gonna do it for the World Series. But now we're gonna head to the gridiron, and not quite as wonderful for the gridiron as there's a very interesting weekend. We're gonna go with one kind of close to your home there as well too. We're gonna look at what's going on in the Great Lakes at Cleveland, Ohio. The Deshaun Watson experiment for now has come to an end. Jameis Winston is going to be coming in. The first 4 letters of his last name are wins, so we'll see if he can turn things around for the 1-6 Browns. But we'll go and kind of start with the elephant in the room in that Deshaun Watson was our statistical bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL this year. All the issues with that, he is out for the Browns now. My curious thought for you is, do you think this is going to be an addition by subtraction? Or do you think that this team is so completely broken that it doesn't even matter at this point?
This is hard for me because I've said since before he started a single game in Cleveland that this was a terrible option. Not for anything off the field, purely on the field reasons. And what I mean, and I stand by it, is this offense has not, will not, and never will be made for a player similar to Deshaun Watson. Never has been, never will be. It is made for players like Joe Flacco. It is made for players like Jameis Winston, where you minimize the amount of extra concerns in his eyes. He has Nick Chubb back in Jameis. He knows how to run this offense. Play action, run first, not the West Coast run first where you have a bunch of different dynamic pieces. No, this is purely old school run first. You'll find a guy in the flats coming across the middle of the field or running deep down the sideline. Those are your 3 options, and we all know Jameis can throw a deep ball. He did it plenty of times to both teams in his heyday. We haven't seen him really light it up the same way since he got his eye surgery, but we do know he can do it as he did in New Orleans. So, yeah, I don't think, first of all, Deshaun being gone is going to hurt the Browns. But at the same time, I do think you do lose something extra when you lose a Deshaun. And while we didn't see a lot of it, there were moments prior to the injury in this last game and even the week before where you saw him get out of the pocket and make plays and get first downs that he shouldn't have gotten. But again, the rest of this offense was not made for him. And I do think there's a situation where you talk about the rest of the team ego and all those. And, I'm not here to try to speculate on what the chemistry is in that locker room. But from living in the area, from hearing it, from seeing and hearing what happened as Deshaun was being carted off, you have to wonder if it's not a better situation for the Browns as a whole.
I got a little bit of a little checklist I'm going to go down here, so y'all have to bear with me here because I got a lot for this one. We're going to start with the initial question posed. I think we all kind of owe Billy O'Brien a slight apology, not for his butt chin or anything else he's done, but when he was the head coach in Houston, he had Deshaun humming. And some of the reports were he had simplified the offense from the quarterback spot to the point where there was times in practice, there was a report he was looking at Bill O'Brien on the sideline, like you see in college when they look to the sideline for the play. They basically made an offense cater to exactly what he did at Clemson. And it works pretty well. They got it to work at that case. It helps when you have DeAndre Hopkins, Kenny Stills, Laramie Tunsil, and a lot of those guys too. But they had made it to the point where it could work. Like you mentioned, it was basically completely spread out for the most part, very limited traditional quote unquote run game. And he was also younger and not injured and didn't have 3 years of football missed. So he was a true athlete. So when he had to escape, he could Houdini his way through things at his absolute best. And when you end up not playing for 3 years, you get a little bit older, your legs get banged up, you tear your ACL twice. Now your Achilles, that's bound to go a little bit. So he misses that. With as far as the Jameis Winston part of it, I agree with you. People forget Jameis Winston was good the last time we saw him with the Saints as a starter. They were 5-2, and he had 14 touchdowns to 3 picks. So Jameis with vision wasn't throwing the 30 picks that everyone likes to remember. He's not darker Jay Cutler like everyone likes to think of. He threw 5,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 30 picks in a season. The next time we saw him as a starter 2 years later, he was efficient, rolling. The Saints were up on the Buccaneers in that game, the Tom Brady-led Buccaneers, before his knee exploded. And then he just really hasn't played much since. For some reason, the Saints inexplicably never threw him out there except week 18 last year, and they scored, and he got Jamal Williams in the end zone. So we'll see with that one. I think that's going to be very beneficial. I think David Njoku is going to be used a lot more now that he's healthy too. That play action, find the tight end. If Jerry Jeudy can catch the ball, he's going to be utilized a lot there. Elijah Moore, I think a lot of these different routes will open up. James is probably sitting like, really? You couldn't have held on to Amari Cooper for one more week. Just let me have that one more time. The last thing I'll mention too is there was a lot of talk with the booing as he was getting carted off, that sort of thing, or the cheering as he was getting carted off. The booing beforehand. While yes, I feel like there's no right answer here. So we're gonna try and walk a tightrope here. And not the surgery that all the Alabama players get, like a normal tightrope here. More or less, in theory, yes, the act of booing someone is always wrong. It's morally incorrect. But the situation you did by bringing him in there amidst everything, and giving him that contract when he had not played for 600 days or whatever it was, knowing his suspension was looming, and so you structured his contract so he only had like a $1 million salary that first year. So if he did get fined and missed time, he wasn't missing anything. You basically try to finagle the system that way. And he had just signed a contract with Houston that he had not played a single down under. He signed an extension there, did not play down with them, so you ripped that up and gave him the biggest contract in history. You can't really yell at the people for booing on their morality when you sacrificed your own morality. At that point, I'm trying to think of how to word it. I don't say you sold your soul at that point, but you did you said, you know what, we're sacrificing our morality and you have to accept it, but you have to keep your morals. It's kind of backwards, if that makes sense too. Like, not saying condone injuries, we're not even touching that really at this point. It's the overall reaction as well. And at the same time, you were 1-6, and he was kind of a part of the problem. So no matter what people were they booed his entrance. The only reason people showed up was to cheer Nick Chubb at that point with him being back. And you could see in those entrances. So I won't dive too much deep in that, but I think the discourse surrounding, I'm happy that we're going to get away from that for a little bit. This week's been annoying anyone who follows the Cleveland Browns space, if you will. But
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm excited to see Jameis Winston, honestly. I think it's going to be It's gonna be very interesting. We're gonna see what is the problem. Kevin Stefanski also not giving up play calling duties to Dorsey, which that's interesting considering last time we saw Ken Dorsey, he had Josh Allen and had him looking like Jay Cutler. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't until he got fired that Josh Allen turned it around a bit. So we'll see. It's a mess there, and you know what? Any of those futures bets on them making the playoffs, those are gone now. Like
Yeah.
those are out of
Yeah.
the way. So I'm mad about that still too. But it's a mess there, and you know what? It's all could have been avoided. Joe Flacco is still around.
Yeah. And he
Maybe
wanted
Joe
to be in
Flacco is
Cleveland.
better than we all thought too, because now he's doing it in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and let's not forget Joe Flacco requested to stay in Cleveland. He was happy to stay in Cleveland. He wanted to be there. I do want to just throw this out there just because you mentioned the booing and all that cheering afterwards. Nobody's ever going to mistake Cleveland Browns fans for being passionate. If anybody's ever watched a Browns team, they sat through 0-16. What was it 1-33
133, yeah.
for forever? They had better statistics during that time period than what they have had under Deshaun,
They
which
still
is
have yet to
wild to
score
think
20
about.
points. There are
And
3
yet, you
MLB teams that scored 20 points this year, they just called them runs. The A's have
yeah,
scored 20 points this year.
exactly. And the wildest thing to me is you're still selling out these games, and these players are still or these fans are still showing up. They're still there. They are still passionate. They are a stock away from owning this team, like the Packers. Just think about that. That is how passionate they are. Packers fans, I think, are probably the pinnacle of what is actually passion in the NFL as far as a fanship goes. I think Cleveland is 1B in that conversation. And yes, I do see it on a regular basis. I live in Northeast Ohio. It is regular, we've been to tailgates. We did a whole tailgate at a Cleveland Browns game. Like, we've seen it firsthand, but I don't appreciate anybody cheering somebody getting injured, period. I think that was classless. But before I get lambasted, because I still have to go to work tomorrow, you know, I I have to say I understand it. For players on the field, it sucks. That's your for all the outfield stuff, put that aside for a moment. On the field, that's your on-field brother. There's no politics, there's no outside whatever when you're in between the white lines. So for me, it's hard to look at that and be like, "Oh, man, it's okay." No, it's not
Not
okay to
okay, but
boo.
I'm not gonna throw a stone from my nice comfy glass house either,
I
like,
I think it was the commentary of the chants that makes it so much worse. And if you haven't heard those, go listen to them. They're all over social media. It is what it is. But yeah, I think you're right though. The Browns organization, they sold their soul. There's no doubt about this. And they're right now the Browns are kind of going through it. That this with Watson, and now the team has announced that they're going to try to focus on a plan to move the stadium out of Cleveland, downtown Cleveland, and into Brook Park, which is a really nice stadium, and I really like the idea. But obviously, Browns fans don't like that as much. So, I don't know. It's a tough situation, but yeah, I don't appreciate the booing side of things when somebody's injured, but I get it. I from a fan standpoint, I would love to boo the Cowboys every single moment. But there's time and place as well. I think it's part of it, and so not a great look for everybody, but hopefully for the Browns, they'll figure themselves out.
last thing I'll touch on with that too before we'll move on out of there too is I think his name was Danny Perkins. His name eludes me, and I apologize if I'm getting it wrong. He's a national radio guy that I saw something they did. Kinda touched on it too. The worst part about the whole discourse was afterwards it was painted with Watson and the Browns as victims getting booed, that they
Yeah,
were martyrs and victimized. This is a situation where there's real, actual alleged victims, so we will not be making anybody a victim there. That is a
yeah,
very shitty injury, and you will be out for 9 months. That is completely like, let's chill with all that. Let's chill with everything else too. And it was absolutely you know what's funny is, the people that are unintentionally funny, like they were being 100% serious or they just don't know they're funny, but they are funny.
yeah,
The best part about this whole thing was when Myles Garrett was standing up for him. Good teammate, everything like that. But he said he's been a model citizen throughout college and most of his NFL career. The fact that he
yeah.
had to say most of his NFL career is just he couldn't actually say it with a straight face, even though he was trying to, which was unintentionally hilarious. But either way,
And
we could
every Browns player I've seen an interview from right now has said the same thing. Yeah, on the field, it's great to have them. Very specific wording though on that, and I'll just leave it at that.
exactly. You know what? We're thou shall not cast stones from the comfort of thy glass house, but at the same time, let's not the situation where let's not try and make anyone a victim here, especially with everything that's surrounded what got us to this point in the first place, is how I look at it as well. Don't love the act, but at the same time, you made your own bet here. You mentioned the passion too, and they're actual passion, not rowdy Philadelphia passionate,
Yeah.
not violently passionate like normal passionate. But
No, they
either way,
beat up each other. Like the Browns fans beat up each other. They don't beat up other people.
exactly,
They
like they
don't do
be.
what the Ravens guy does and go punch people in the middle of the street.
Oh, I wish I was at that Ravens game, but that's another story too. We're gonna circle out of this one too because we gotta head to college football as well, and there's been a little bit of a shakeup. The last few weeks has been madness on top of madness. I think 3 of the top 5 from right before you went on vacation have already lost. They've been
Yep.
moved all the way around. It is not that this is not the top 5 that you left with. It has changed a lot since you came back. Is
Yep.
that right now it's all Big 10 and all SEC at the top of the AP poll. So, you know what? Let's go and just take a quick look here at the top 5. Let's Oregon taking the spot at number 1. Georgia at number 2 after their big upset over Texas. Penn State somehow at 3 just because they're still hanging around. Ohio State at 4 after the close loss to Oregon. Texas catching the net there to get spot number 5 just to keep the Big 10 and the SEC. And then Miami just outside at 6. So how are we feeling, Kelcey? Like you're looking at this one too. A little bit of giggle. We talked about Oregon was kind of disappointing us the first couple weeks of the season. Now they find themselves as the definitive number 1 that no one can really argue.
Yeah, this reminds me of the early to mid 2000s SEC football, where all the good what ends up happening is you do really well until you get into the actual conference play, and then guess what happened? You beat each other up, and now there's only one team left after the SEC championship to be up there. Now, with that said, the difference here is in the Big Ten, all 3 of these teams have to play each other, and 2 of them already have played each other in Oregon and Ohio State. So I don't hate this as much as I would have hated this back in the day because I do like the situation. I honestly don't like that Texas is ahead of Miami personally. I still think undefeated Miami has proven themselves better than one-loss teams, all one-loss teams. And until they lose, I don't think they deserve to be below 3 one-loss teams. And yes, I am wearing a Georgia hoodie saying that. And no, mind you, if you guys missed the intro, I am not a Georgia fan. I am paying off a bet because Georgia beat Auburn for the 9th year in a row. But that doesn't mean I don't understand why Georgia could be up there. But Georgia shouldn't be ahead of Miami, period, at all. And that's the one complaint I have about the top 5 right now. I'm glad you cut it off at 6 because beyond that, there's a whole bunch of mess. But no, look, everybody complains about conference realignment. There's no excuses for conference realignment being a bad thing by the end of the season when we look at this start today, and look at this at the end of the season when all these teams have played each other. It is going to be great to see how this actually shakes out because I think that's the important part of all this.
Absolutely. I think the only teams that I would be okay with being ahead of Miami are Oregon. I would say Penn State due to the undefeatedness at least.
Yeah.
I don't hate Georgia being up there because what they did to number 1 Texas, they actually kind of beat the piss out of them for the most part. So I'll accept that as a one-loss team and a harder schedule overall. But that's it. Texas and Ohio State should not be ahead of them. Like Ohio State, I know they lost close to Oregon just because Will Howard fell down after the clock expired, whatever. But Miami's got to be at least 4, at minimum 4. That's how I feel like. Arguably 3. Like they got to be up there a little bit higher. Holding them at 6 is kind of just you're punishing them for the schedule at that point, which it should be the difference maker when it's close, not 6 spots low. Like that's not the case here.
Here's why I don't like Georgia ahead of Miami as included in all that. I do agree Penn State should be up there. I do think Penn State should be number 2. But I think Miami, I think Miami should be 3 ahead of Georgia because Georgia lost to Bama. Bama lost to Vandy. That is not equal good for Georgia. You lost to a team. You didn't even barely showed up against a team that lost to Vandy and gave up 40 plus to Vandy. Now, with that said, if Vandy decides to continue their amazing streak right now and beat the snot out of Texas, then okay. Maybe we can have a full conversation here, Georgia. But I still do not accept it until Miami has to play somebody tough. If they play somebody tough and they struggle, all right, cool. Put Georgia back up there. If Georgia wins out for the rest of the season, fine. Put them ahead of Miami. But right now, I don't. This is where I have to always check myself now with the new college football playoff because none of this matters. Literally 0 of these rankings matter when it comes time for the college football playoffs because
A little bit
like
because you get the
eh,
buys, but yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, these aren't like the BCS where you have like a percentage of these that play in. It's just like, oh well, hey, we've looked at the AP poll for the first 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, and then we put out the college football playoff rankings. But like, yeah,
I will say
I can
that
complain
I
about every
mentioned
ranking.
the good news, pretty much all of the teams are gonna have an opportunity to play each other that haven't already once that college football playoff comes around. Because we imagine all 6 of these teams will be in the hunt for that barring a wild collapse down the stretch. We have to imagine that all of them will find a way in there barring something goofy. So I definitely will be looking forward to that. But speaking of college football and Vanderbilt, you have a little bit of a close relationship with Vanderbilt this year after they helped you win some money as part of the newer part of our show the last month or so. Kelsey's greatest gamble is back. And you know what? You're actually here to tell us about what the
Yeah.
coin flip's going to be this week.
Yeah, I gave you the whole laundry list of things to rattle off for that Vandy Kentucky game of why I
Mm.
believe Vandy would win. And then the greatest support ever happened, which is Coach Nick Saban going on board with me
Mm.
and picking against Kentucky, being the only one on that table to do so. And lo and behold, Vandy wins. Kelsey looks good. Unfortunately, Nebraska last week did not help
Uh,
me whatsoever. So we're sitting this season 3-2-1 in the last 6 weeks. The one game that got pushed was BYU. That actually started the run of 3 straight victories. But we're gonna see if we can go back to the well here. We're gonna see if we can get this win out of a team and not just a push. We're going with BYU, who is ranked number 11 in the AP or number 12 in the coaches poll, if you want to be specific. And they are an underdog to a 3-2 UCF team. Sorry, 3-4 UCF team at UCF. I'm sorry. I know the bounce house is a crazy place to go and be, but we're talking about a team who put up a fake national championship team banner against their current head coach. Like this is not good. This is not going to be a good look for UCF. Again, this is a conference matchup too. This is a Big 12 conference matchup. BYU looks, for all intents and purposes, very good. Talking about they can't cover a 1.5 point spread. Absolutely going to happen. UCF has looked awful. They just replaced their starting quarterback this year with their backup, and it didn't help them. But there's no doubt about it. So BYU for me, they're my pick for this week. I know it's a plus 115 money line. Should be a safe bet out of all things. Should be get underdog odds with kind of a favorite mentality here. The way BYU's been playing, the way they've traveled and had to play in the Big 12 has been impressive. So, yeah, hoping they give me a 4-2-1 record here and not another push for this week.
And you know what? It's been good and it's won some money for everybody who's partaken, including myself as well. And you know what? Winning money has been one of our strong suits this year, not just with college football, but if you have been tuning in every Sunday, we've been doing NFL bets for DJ's Best Bets as well. And we've been on a little bit of our own hot streak there as well. As last week going 3-1, 10-1-1 overall in the last few weeks with a 21-5-2 record. Damn those pushes with those spreads. Everyone needs to be 0.5. None of this 7-point spread or 3-point spread stuff. 3.5 or 7.5 or whatever. But 21-5-2. You put those, they usually average, I think the lowest odds one I had was like -200. So they're mostly in that winnable category range where you get almost a full unit back that you put in is what we normally are going for. So if you've been putting just $5 per bet, you're sitting pretty right now for the most part, which is what I've been doing too. It's been very nice. So definitely be sure to follow us there's no guarantees in betting. We're not going to promise that. We're not guaranteeing anything. The numbers speak for themselves. We put in the work for it. We put in the effort to give you the best chance to
Absolutely.
for lack of better terms, we show our work. I'd break it. So be sure to tune in every Sunday for DJ's Best Bets and of course the coin flip as well. If you're just catching it now on Wednesday or right on Saturday, right before kickoff, it's not too late. You have a chance.
Yeah.
It's been very beneficial so far for me.
And just a sneaky odds pick here. I know I mentioned Vandy taking on Texas. Vandy plus 650 odds at home against Texas, who has a Quinn Ewer who may or may not play. So
Mm.
just throwing it out there. It's all up for you to choose.
And a very interesting spread nonetheless on top of it. So you know what? If you're feeling more comfortable with the spread, that Vandy's interesting. Never be kid. I can't believe we're saying this in 2024, but don't always bet against Vandy. Like be careful betting against Vandy. It's dangerous out
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it here for the tip off. That's now going to take us into Kelsey's second favorite part of every show. And that, well, maybe the third now that we have the coin flip. We have the main event in NBA season. We are about is officially tipped off. We're a little bit late for this one just because they decided to tip off on a Tuesday right before our Wednesday show. And teams are starting to get going today, but the NBA season officially underway. So it's time for us to crack into our NBA season predictions. And anyone who's tuned in them before, we don't go through them quite like the NFL ones just because there's way too many damn games for that. We're just going to show you who's getting to the playoffs, basically. Then we're going to go from there. So we're going to go and start with the Eastern Conference and take a look at what we have in the East. And we both like ourselves some Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers right out of the gate. So we're pretty much on the same page there. I like the Villanova Knicks a little bit here. You like the Cavs to take the 4 spot. I like the Pacers. That's where we have the Knicks. I like the Cavs at 6. You have the Magic. Heat at 7. Pacers at 7. Magic at 8. Raptors at 8. So similar teams where we are different is you do not have the Heat getting in there, and I do. You have the Magic. You have the Raptors getting in there, and I don't. So showing some love to our neighbors up north, I see, but no love for South Beach for you.
Yeah, I think it's just down to offensive firepower. I think the loss of Martin is going to be very painful for the Heat. I do think that's just that was just a loss you couldn't afford. I do think the Raptors are that sneaky team. They always have been. That team that just flies down from Canada, beats a team, rolls back up to Canada, hangs out with Drake, and then goes back and forth. It's just kind of frustrating to deal with the Raptors. And to be honest, full disclosure, they were my 10 seed, but again, play-in matters in the NBA, and their play-in matchups got them up there. The Heat were the 9 seed. So I do think the Heat are going to be in a play-in game, which if you count that for playoffs, okay, sure, they're in the playoffs. We don't count it for the playoffs. We just count about who cares, who gets after the play-in game. So for me, yeah, that's why I have the Raptors over the Heat. But they were close. I mean, we're talking 2 games, between the two of them. I think the rest of our picks, though, it's ironic that we have so many similarities. The first 3 when you saw this graphic, I laughed because I thought we had the exact same list after that, and then it changes it up so much. I'm surprised you don't like the Cavs as much, though. I got to be honest. I thought you'd be a little bit more favorable to the Cavs.
I love the Cavs because I love Donovan Mitchell. I also am kind of a little bit worried about health because we've seen in the last 3 years, health has always kind of spiked them at some point. I love Evan Mobley. I think him and Donovan Mitchell are going to be an electric duo, and Darius Garland's really good. I think they just got the health thing plus sometimes between the coaching staff and the players and just the scheme fit. Sometimes they go through stretches where you just scratch your head like, what are we doing? Then they go through stretches where they look like a true contender for the East. I need them to find an even keel for me because it's been the last 3 years. It's been like the same story where awesome. Oh God. Oh, I just want to find an even keel where everyone stays healthy and flows and molds together. But I do like them a lot. I think they'll make some noise in the playoffs. I think they're going to be a good squad. I think the Pacers with a healthy Tyrese Halliburton are going to be very, very good. I'm presuming he's going to be healthy as well. And then I think the Knicks too. I think it's going to be slow to start the year. I think what's going to be great is we have the ultimate matchup. Thibodeau's hard-nosed play, everybody 45 minutes versus the ultimate Iron Man and Mikal Bridges. Who is going to break first? Damn it. I can't wait to see this. Is the ultimate clash of titans taking place on the single team. Jalen Brunson needs to quit being completely fouled. His game needs to quit being based on just getting fouled from behind every time. I say that jokingly. It's that we gave James Harden a tough time about drawing fouls. We're going to do the same with Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
I think Karl-Anthony Towns is going to assimilate just fine. I know they just got absolutely lambasted by the Celtics, but as we could both see, we both like the Celtics a lot. That is a 2004 Pistons team on steroids. That is a loaded squad. So I like a lot of these teams too, but I like the Cavs. It feels like the East, there's like 9 teams to pick 8 spots. I feel like it's not overly deep compared to like the West, where I think we'll have a little bit more differences on who even gets in.
Yeah, exactly. And I just one thing to kind of cap off that Knicks thing that I just need to mention Cat because I've been the biggest complainer on the way Cat plays. Nobody watched game 1. Dude played down low a majority of their offensive plays, which is all I've been asking for his entire career. And guess what? He dominated. He did extremely well down low in his first game, really playing that position in his entire NBA career. Thank you, Thibodeau, for forcing Karl-Anthony Towns into the paint, or Jalen Brunson, whichever one of you did it. Also, Mikal Bridges, I just need him to go back to his regular jump shot, please, because this new jump shot sucks.
I bet that I need him to get over 14.5 points, and the fact that he would watching those shots gave me anxiety. Luckily, he kicked it in the gear in that 3rd and 4th quarter and started making some. But we agree, Mikal Bridges, just go back to the OG shot. He shoots
so
like he's learning how to walk.
This is not a Markelle Fultz situation that we know of. So please don't even.
You were a legitimate all-star. Like you were outstanding before. Don't change anything just to get a little bit better. But now I can take the trip to the Western Conference where we have a little bit of differences. So I got the Mavericks taking the top spot. I think they're gonna build off last year. You got the Oklahoma City Thunder, part 2 as the number 1 seed. Both have the Nuggets at 2. Just swapping the Thunder at 3 for me. The Timberwolves, you have Ant-Man continuing it going without Karl Anthony Towns. You believe in the newly extended and re-signed Rudy Gobert, it looks like. At the 4 spot, I do have the Grizzlies with a healthy John Morant and squad. I think the like we saw the years when they were healthy, they find a way to run through during the regular season. They're gritty, they find a way to get there. Timberwolves at 5, I think they'll miss Karl Anthony Towns offensively. Defensively, I still reluctant to see Rudy Gobert play offense. It always hurts to watch. Lakers, I think they just always find a way to get in there. I don't know how. Even when they look terrible, they find a way to squeak into the 6, 7, 8 spot. Suns, they have all the talent in the world. Surprise team for me is the Spurs. CP3 just wins everywhere he goes. Now you give him Victor Wembanyama, who looks like the second coming. He looks like the next dude. They find a way to get in there. Maybe they're the 10 seed and they play the way to the 8 seed. I don't know, but they find a way for me.
That's fair. By the way, I do want to point out that this year I wasn't the only one that left an LA team off of the playoff seeding. Because last year I left both of them off. So yeah, I wasn't completely wrong either.
I need
So
Kawhi to play. I can't put him in there if he doesn't play, and there's no Paul George to back it up at this point either. So
that's fair, and that's I understand that. I think that there's something to be said about a new stadium and team performing in said new stadium. I think Kawhi will play a lot. That's why I have him in here.
well, he's out for
Pelicans,
like 3 months right now, or not 3
I
months,
know.
but indefinitely. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
probably going to be a January situation again for him. But yeah, I think the Pelicans is a team that sneaks in there at 8, and then you didn't have the Kings. I do have the Kings getting in there.
it
They're
hurt
still
me,
a
man.
really
I
good
had him
team.
in there, but I love your Kings. It hurt me, but
Yeah, I think they're still a really good team. I think Kevin Werder is coming into his own, and there's a potential this team trade somebody in the midseason to get a little bit better, defensively. I think that's going to be the struggle is defensively, but I think the big addition that nobody wants to talk about because they're all afraid of him because he's the mid-range king and they think he's washed out of today's game, DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan is all I've been asking for on the Kings for a long time because the one thing the Kings lack is that real option that can go and get his bucket whenever and wherever he wants. And DeMar is that dude. So yeah, that's why I have him in there. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, neither one of our lists really surprises me. I see you have a lot more faith in Luka than I have given in the last 6 years of being beaten down by the Luka train. But you know what? I respect it.
they found something at the end of last year after the trade deadline. They got a little bit better defensively. Him and Kyrie found a way to click. The offense they ran with those pick and rolls, those lobs, they found something that I think it's going to carry over. They ran through the play. They looked good in the playoffs. I think everyone just remembers that Celtics series. And like I mentioned, the Celtics last year were a well-oiled. They were a historically great team. They just didn't have a Steph Curry, LeBron James, like the Kevin Durant, those players that stick out in historical rankings. Jason Tatum's not there yet. Jalen Brown's not there yet, et cetera, et cetera. They're just good, like top to bottom. So I think the Mavs they found something. I think they will continue it. And I'm thinking Luka's going to build off of that from last year. Like, oh, okay. And now he's going to come out in full Luka mode. The Luka that you hate because basically the one time you said Luka's not that good, he's made you regret it ever since. 6 years later.
Hey, look, I mean, I have given my roses when they needed to be given. So, yeah, no, the one for me, you mentioned the Wolves and my distaste of Gobert obviously still exists. Doesn't change the fact I still hate his contract. This is purely because I think Julius Randle fits in well with this team. I do think he is exceptionally good fit for this team, and I also think Dante DiVincenzo is an underratedly good fit. I've
And he's not
seen
yapping at the sidelines.
exactly. Well, yeah, exactly. Maybe he does better when he does it. I don't know.
Mm.
I still think Naz Reid is a great player to come off the bench as well, and Nikhil Alexander is also a guy that people are underrated. And I think we saw it down the stretch last year when dude is scoring 20 points a game. Like he can still play, and we all know Ant again. Everybody's watched the show in the past. You've heard me talk about Ant not being a top 20 player in the game, especially on Jared's show, and I like to give him crap about it. I just said I asked for him to prove it. He proved it. Ant proved that he is a top 20 player in the game. I'm accepting of that, and that is why I have him at 3. I think I will say this, and I'm predicting this now: the top 4 seeds in the West, 5 games between them. That's the most I think that stretch will ever get. And I don't mean like 5 in the standings. It's like 2.5 is really what it's going to be. Difference between the 4 teams.
I think it's gonna be a lot like we saw last year, where the final game of the season actually did shake up standings a little bit. Like the Spurs beating the Nuggets at the end of the season last year actually dropped them out of that one spot, and I think we'll see a lot of that again this year. And the one thing about Ant-Man is He's gonna bring it to everybody. As soon as Bronny James checked in yesterday for like 2 minutes, he's immediately in his ear before they even get the ball to the out of bounds guy. So at least you gotta love that about Anthony. He's every bit as advertised when it comes to that for sure. And I think he's gonna be awesome this year too. But this is what we have going into the playoffs for both teams. Now we'll go and take a look at how we think it's going to play out. So we're going to just skip ahead. We're going to go right to the conference finals for each side, and I have the Mavericks taking on the Nuggets 1 versus 2, and then the Celtics taking on the Bucks 1 versus 2. Kelcey with the Thunder taking on the Wolves, and then the Celtics taking on the Bucks. So where we are similar, we are also a little bit different.
Yeah, I needed to change it up. I do like the Thunder. I do like SGA. I think SGA is a stud. And I do think he's the reason why they get carried into the 1 seed, and I think he's the reason why they continue into the playoffs. I think they're a really good team, and they got better this offseason. Adding Hartenstein might be an underrated piece of this team that doesn't get looked at. You add a big like that who is an exceptionally good rebounder and who can play facing the basket offensively. Not a lot of teams can match up with that. And guess who's the big team that you have to be concerned about who has a big? Well, that's right, Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. What happens when you make him guard? He loses the ability to play both ways. So that's my whole theory here. The Thunder can get past the Nuggets that way. I think the Wolves are the same way. I think Naz Reid against Jokic and Gobert against Jokic when they actually play on him is a good fit. And also you can slide Julius Randle out on him. That's completely exceptional. So yeah, that's why I have the Thunder and Wolves matching up, and then I don't think there's any doubt Celtics Bucks makes the most sense. Bucks might have the best starting five in the NBA this regular season.
Celtics, Bucks, I just think they're the two best teams in the East too, so I won't go too deep into that one. Mavericks, Nuggets. I think the Mavericks just match up weirdly with some of those teams, like the Wolves, like the Thunders. They're just tough matchups for them, even though those ones are tough matchups for the Nuggets. It's that weird little circle. They beat them. It's rock paper scissors. I think just the way I have it playing out, we'll get the Mavs taking on the Nuggets, which will now take us to the NBA Finals for each of us. And interesting enough, we somehow did not come up with the exact same matchup from that. I have the Bucks taking on the Nuggets, with you having the Celtics taking on the Wolves. And interesting enough, too, we have 4 different teams and not even the same winner this year, which plays out kind of nicely. I do think the Bucks, they find a way to get back on top. Is Giannis Antetokounmpo slash Greek freak slash kind of freaky with some of the stuff that he says and kind of needs to be tamed at some points. I think he finds a way to kind of bounce back and get himself to the top of the mantle. It's interesting. We almost forget how good he is with Luka, Jokic, and then the Embiid and Jokic battle royale. He's still a top 3 player who, if I had to rank him right now, I might put him at 1 with what he offers defensively. I think him versus Jokic is a modern day Goliath matchup since they both do so much operating down in the paint. Jokic is obviously thicker, could back him down that Brooke Lopez. I know all of that, but I think Dame Lillard and Giannis in year 2, I think the experiment's going to work a lot cleaner. They're going to stay healthier. I do worry with Doc Rivers as the head coach. I'm not going to lie. I know he's world champion, all that sort of thing, but that team got bad when he stepped in last year. I don't think that's going to continue. I think this year it's going to kind of round into form. I think they're going to find a way. I think they'll also make a trade deadline move for just a small starting piece, like getting a Drew Holiday. No, they're not going to get him, obviously, but a piece like that just kind of rounds out the lineup a bit. But I like Giannis to come back healthy and Dame Lillard to come back healthy and find a way to match up with the Nuggets, the finals that I've wanted the last 2 years. I think we'll get it this year.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't hate that. My big reason I didn't have the Bucks advancing past the Celtics, one, the Celtics are really good. But 2, let's not forget that Doc Rivers is still the coach of the Bucks. While you think he's going to be helpful, I don't. I've never thought Doc Rivers has been a good coach, good X's and O's coach. He's going to get outbeat in the X's and O's, and I think Missoula, on the other hand, is a great X's and O's coach. We talked about this last year in the playoffs, and especially when we talk about who's advancing. There's no doubt in my mind that when it comes to X's and O's, the Celtics are going to beat out 95% of teams outside of the Spurs. Yeah, I mean, especially as long as their first team is in shooting threes, otherwise they're going to miss 13 straight. Could have used that 30th last night, but anyways, for me, I have Celtics Wolves, and I think, as I said, Ant proved he's a top 5 guy, not top 5, sorry, top 10 guy in my eyes right now in the NBA.
Out to be a top 5 guy, it looks like.
Probably going to be a top 5 guy by the end of the season when he continues on this projection. And look, I think Julius Randle is the piece he needs. I think he needs somebody who's willing and able to go down low and battle. And as much as, again, talked about Cat did it in game 1 for the Knicks, that's with the Knicks now. He never did it for the Wolves. Because if he did it for the Wolves, oh my gosh, he might have actually won an MVP. But no, and on the other hand, though, is like he knows how to control his team. He knows how to go and get it. He can get assists as well. He can get rebounds. Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert's defensive abilities. Yes, he is a purely like formation defensive good guy, but so be it. You know what? It works in the NBA. And then on top of that, again, DiVincenzo I think is a difference maker, and I think that gives them an opportunity to match up with the Celtics, which is why I have the Wolves winning and Anthony Edwards getting the MVP.
Absolutely. Then just recap that. I have the Bucks taking on the Nuggets with Giannis Antetokounmpo getting MVP. So we should have, if either one of these come to fruition, we should have a very fun matchup. But we're going to spend some quick time giving out a little bit of hardware for the NBA regular season award winners that we have. I like it because the one thing we both did here is the last 6 years we've had 3 MVP winners. 3 have been Jokic, 2 have been Giannis, and 1 has been Embiid. So we're mixing it up a little bit. I like this. I got Luka taking it. I think continues what he did last year, puts up a bunch of numbers. SGA, I'm guessing you have him winning the scoring title with having him as MVP with the way he gets buckets. Like I'm guessing like 32 points a game, leading the NBA is what you have him at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Potentially averaging double assist to points type of situation where he's averaging almost 30 and at least 11 assists is what I think. But yeah, no, SGA is, if anybody's watched him play, him on this team is going to be fun to watch. Health, as long as he stays healthy. That's always the caveat for this. But yeah, I love the Luka pick. He's my number 2, but SGA is, I think he's going to be the difference maker for me.
The certified bucket, and unless you bet the over for his 3-pointers, then you're going to be disappointed, even if it's
don't do that.
Like never do that. But defense player, I think Evan Mobley rounds back out into form. I think we get to see what got him in the running a couple years ago, but just lost it inexplicably. I think he'll find a way to get back, and I think there will be a little bit of hesitancy for Wemby. Much as people want to, I think there will be some that will hesitate. It's going to be a close race. Dalton Connect, rookie of the year. He's ready to go. I think he's one of the, like what Kyle Kuzma was. He's just ready to go now. I'm not saying he has the highest ceiling, but I think he's ready to go now. Then JJ Redick, I think, is going to coach of the year because that roster is kind of messy. It's his first time coaching. And he has a household name on top of it. There's a lot of things that if they get to the playoffs, especially the 6th seed, like I have them doing, all signs are going to point to him at that point because the rest of them all kind of fall in line with what you expect. Where with him, it's like, oh, he did that while dealing with that circus sideshow in his first year as a coach. Okay, so I'm going to give JJ Redick some love. And this is also after the fact, which is kind of cheating too. I liked what he did in game 1. I liked how he coached. I like what he did with the sets with the players. And I think he's going to continue that. So, Kelcey, it looks like you're going a completely different direction, which is exactly what I would expect.
Yeah, I'll go to the coach in a minute. I need to go back to the Wemby thing for a second. If voters don't stop getting in the way of giving players their roses, I'm going to be pissed. Like, this is so frustrating. The dude it already should have been a defensive MVP. Already should have been as a rookie. Now you're giving him an extra year. He's gotten in the weight room. He has gotten bigger. It's still on a very slim frame. He is an alien. His logo is still one of the best in the league. I did digress. Anyways, the dude is a stud. Any reason the Spurs make it anywhere in this season is going to be because of Wemby, offensively and defensively. I know you said that it's down to Paul being on the team with him. That's part of it because somebody's actually going to pass the ball when he's wide open to dunk.
That's all I need.
But on the same side,
I didn't do it last year. That's all I need.
Yeah, like Wemby is just such an alien defensively that people are afraid to. He affected more shots in half of a season than Rudy Gobert did all season. How do you not win Defensive Player of the Year? I don't get it. But in that same vein, I'm going with Zach Edey for Rookie of the Year because I think Zach Edey, starting center on a team that has playoff aspirations in the Grizzlies, who look good and who need a solid center. And Zach Edey, you don't win a Naismith Player of the Year and suck. He might be slow, but he doesn't suck. So as Gobert has won Defensive Player of the Years many times for being big guy in middle of court, Zach Edey has an opportunity to be big guy in middle of a court. And by the way, he has the offense that Rudy Gobert lacks. So that's why I have him Rookie of the Year. He is the favorite right now. Yes, it's low-hanging fruit. I don't care. I'm tired of getting in my own way and getting things wrong every year. And Coach of the Year, I'm going with Mark Daigneault. I think I said that right. He's not the household name, obviously, because I had to look up how to pronounce the name, and I think I still mispronounced it. But he is the Thunder's coach, and if you don't see what he did last year, he's going to do the same thing this year. That team got better. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together and making sure you can excel, which I don't think he has any issues with doing. And I think if the Thunder finish first in the West, I have them getting to the Eastern Conference Finals as well, and then obviously SGA winning the MVP. There should be no reason that the Coach of the Year goes for that team. that's like it just makes common sense. But again, voters are voters. So Angel Reese as an MVP vote also still irritates me, and these are the same type of voters. So
We're not going to get too much into that one, but here's what we're looking at for our award winners for our predictions as well too. A little bit of difference, but a whole lot of fun. I think all of these have a very decent chance of happening as well too. So those of you tuning in, be sure to let us know down in the comments below. Which one of us do you think is closer to being right, or which ones do you think, or are they just all terrible, and who you think is going to be the actual award winners for them as well too? But that's going to do it here for the main event and our NBA predictions. That's going to now take us into crunch time. And for crunch time, we're going to talk a little bit of fantasy football here. And right before we jump into that, we do have a comment I'd like to jump on. It's college basketball for a change. So, who do you guys think will perform the best tomorrow of John Collins, Keaton Johnson, and Malik Monk for his fantasy team? I'm going to lean towards John Collins because I think he can get you a double double. And my history, it depends on their scoring, obviously. But double doubles tend to do well in fantasy basketball, like the rebounds, the points, the field goal percentage, that sort of thing. So, based on depending on your scoring, I'm going to lean towards John Collins.
I'm gonna be a biased individual here, and I'm gonna go with six man of the year and six man of the year this year, Malik Monk. I think there's no doubt. I obviously bias is what it is, but I think his position on the Kings is exceptional, and he can knock it down with the best of them. He can put up 30 off the bench. That's all I have to say.
He'll get you buckets, that's for sure. But we're talking fantasy football, and we got some fill-ins to do. As we had a very rough week on the injury front this week for sure. And now we're starting with Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers newly paid star receiver, unfortunately with a very unfortunate ACL tear against the Chiefs. So he is out for the year as well. Kelcey, looking at fill-ins for him for your fantasy team, who's somebody that you might be targeting that might be a little bit lesser known?
I'm gonna stick on his same team, and I'm gonna go with the guy that should have been Super Bowl MVP last year, and I'm gonna go with Juwan Jennings. I know Juwan Jennings himself is coming off of an injury, but Debo is also banged up, meaning that there's options there. Right now, the healthiest person is a guy who got shot a couple weeks ago, and
Hey, it was 2 months ago.
6 weeks ago. Anyways, uh, beyond that, Juwan Jennings, who is now healthy again. And so Juwan Jennings and Brock Purdy have a proven relationship versus why I don't go with Pearsall. But I think for Ayuk, the obvious answer for me is Juwan Jennings. Maybe I'm just thinking the like low hanging fruit on all of these things today. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I went on vacation. I'm like, oh, hey, maybe go low hanging fruit. That's a great idea. But anyways, Juwan Jennings for me is my fantasy fill-in for Brandon Ayuk.
I'll keep mine short and easy. A lot of things you said just applied to Ricky Pearsall. He's the healthiest one of the group right now. We saw a little bit of it coming off in basically spot duty for the Chiefs after Debo had to come out. I think the way he gets open quickly, too. I think the type of routes he's going to run are going to be good for, especially in PPR leagues. And Juwan Jennings is now receiver one, which means he's going to be dealing with the Trent McDuffies and those number one corners, which we'll see what he can do with them. He's a good receiver. He's just never really had to deal with that before. And I'm really curious how defenses will have to kind of roll towards him. So I'm going to take Ricky Pearsall, and he's a rookie with high upside. There's a reason he went in the first round. He had the catch of the year in college football last time he played. So we're going to take Ricky Pearsall for no other reason than why not at this point. At this point, you're reeling. You might as well try somebody on the team.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, I mean, look, I replaced CMC with Jordan Mason, and I'm not regretting that situation. So I think you're exactly right. Look to the same team to fill that.
Sometimes it's easier than you think. But speaking of receivers going down, we have one that's not going to be down for quite as long. DK Metcalf. It looks like he is week to week. So probably going to miss this week, almost guaranteed. Maybe another week. You can't really say the receivers on his team because they're already probably on somebody else's team at this point with Tyler Lockett and JSN. They've already, more than likely, they've been drafted unless you were a demon and you took one of those yourself. You might still be looking.
Yeah, no, you are. And for me, I'm going to stay in division with this one. I'm going to go down to the Cardinals, and I'm going to go with Greg Dortch as a fill-in potentially for this one. And he's a guy that kind of gets overlooked, obviously MHJ being in Arizona. But when it comes down to it, him and Kyler have a combination, and they've shown it a couple times this season getting into the end zone. So if he has a week where he gets in the end zone, you feel pretty good. And so that's where I'm going Greg Dortch here for the Cardinals as my fill-in for DK, hopefully for just a week, and I don't have to miss this guy for a long time.
Absolutely. As well. It is tough because especially if you need a receiver. If you're looking for a flex, maybe you can find a running back for a week, like a Zach Charbonnet from his team or something like that. But if you need a receiver, I'm going to go to the Colts. I'm going to go with Alec Pierce. I think obviously exploded out of the gate early. It's gone a little bit calm the last couple of weeks. His teams have rolled towards him. I do think Anthony Richardson back in the mix. He's good for a deep shot, it feels like. I think if nothing else, will get you like that one catch for 40 yards, maybe a score on it. So maybe Alec Pierce, like you mentioned, we're doing this for a week, and they are playing Houston, who hasn't been the best against fantasy receivers this year. So I think we're looking for a week here, a long-term fill-in, maybe you're not as comfortable for that, but a week or 2, I think Alec Pierce could be an interesting fit.
Yeah, Alec Pierce sits on my bench most of the season, but he does play when I put him in. He does help me out occasionally. That didn't last week though.
No.
But that'll take us to the last one, DJ. We're gonna go to probably one of the more gruesome injuries we saw last week. Chris Godwin, last minute of the game goes down. He's not the only Buccaneer to go down in that game. Baker has been playing well, but now you're left looking for a receiver replacement for Godwin, potentially even Mike Evans. But I didn't feel like Mike Evans is one I needed to put up here. Obviously, Godwin out for the season, potentially longer. So, DJ, who are you looking to fill in for Godwin?
This one, we're going back to the old reliable and sticking on the same team. We got Jalen McMillan, the rookie receiver out of Washington. Just makes sense. He was already getting on the field as it is. So now you're just basically he's got to throw to somebody. Baker's got to throw to somebody. Why not Jalen McMillan? If you're looking for a flex, then K Dot. Same team, take the tight end and put him in your flex because he's going to get a lot of burn too. If you need the receiver, it's Jalen McMillan.
Yeah, no, I like the McMillan pick. That's pick 1B for me.
Hmm.
1A, I'm staying in division, though. I'm going up to Atlanta. If you haven't picked up this guy, he's available in most leagues. Darnell Mooney for the Falcons. I think he's an underrated piece of that offense. I know we talk about the Drake Londons, the Kyle Pitts, the Bijan Robinsons, and they are all doing video game type things.
Kirk loves
But
himself some Mooney.
Kirk does love him some Mooney, and it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. But all of a sudden, Mooney will break out for 25, 35-yard gain, and you're just like, wait, where did this come from? Before you know it, the dude's over 50. He has targets in the end zone all season. He has a couple touchdowns on the season. So yeah, it's an option where you're not going to get the replacement in one player like you got for Godwin. I think that's the one thing I think every fantasy owner needs to understand. But you can get a percentage of that back, and hopefully the other guys that on your roster you move around that kind of accept to get more of that burden. But yeah, you got to get somebody who's going to get consistent yards. And for me, that's Mooney right now as far as availability goes, because everybody else available, there's so many injuries. I'm literally decimated by injuries in 3 of my leagues. I'm trying so hard to find something, so much so that DJ, you and I traded Cooper Kupp for Marvin Harrison, trying to get something going for either one of us.
I
So,
ruined Marvin Harrison's career by trading for him, so I had to get him out of there to resurrect his career because me doing it is what destroys his career. So you are welcome, Cardinals fans. I saved him.
yeah, so this is one of those situations where you're just trying to kind of replace him by committee, because it might be a situation where you're streaming week to week. But I think Darnell Mooney gets you consistent burn for right now, and maybe you look at this after the trade deadline and like, okay, maybe I need to go and get somebody who just had a player move, like we talked about Cooper Kupp moving, or maybe you look at somebody getting healthy at a quarterback position, or somebody who's maybe sitting there on waivers that like, that guy's got a nagging injury, but maybe he's going to be better. So, but yeah, for me, it's just maybe stay in division, go get Darnell Mooney. That's if you're not going to get McMillan, because right now, good luck getting that guy. I've seen him claimed so fast I think I saw him claimed in one of our leagues basically right after the game.
If you can find Darnell Mooney, if he's still available in your league, go scoop him up quickly, whether you have Godwin injured or not. Go get him now because, like you mentioned, he gets targets, and at worst case scenario, he is a good flex on a week-to-week option, especially they play the Buccaneers, a bad pass defense. They play Carolina, like they got some pass defenses he can feast on coming up. But that's what we're looking at here for fantasy football films for injuries, and that's all we have today for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if one of your favorite places to check out podcasts. Be sure to tune in on Fridays for Fantasy Football Fridays, where we'll talk a little bit more fantasy football. DJ's Best Bets on Sunday, as well as on Mondays. We started MMA Mondays, where we talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of fisticuffs. We'll have one this next Monday recapping the huge UFC fight card coming up this weekend as well. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with us, and we'll see you all again next week.